This video is sponsored by Audiomika, manufacturers of the interconnects and speaker cables used by a British audiophile. For more information about these and their other products, please click the link in the description. Auralic have launched a new product range this week. I don't know about you, but I find it tricky to keep on top of what their product offerings are. The G1, G2 and G3 designations are fairly straightforward. As the model number increases, so does the price and the tech inside it. The differences between Aries and Altair models is also clear. The Aries denote their streaming transports and Altair their streaming DACS. The Leo is a master clock and Cirrus an upsampler to connect to their higher tier products. But the Vega products seem very similar to the Altair streaming DACS. The official line from Auralic is that the Vega products have more of a DAC focus, whereas the Altair products are a more comprehensive feature set. I'm not sure if that is necessary. There seems to be some redundancy in Auralic's product range. If that's confusing, prepare to be bamboozled. Auralic has just launched a new S1 series of products that will sit alongside their current G2.2 Series. It features a Vega S1 streaming DAC and Aries S1 streaming transport. Both can be upgraded with a purer power external power supply. Actually, the new S1 series is slightly cheaper than the G2.2 series, but has technology from the G2.2 series. Those are products that retail for between £5,000 and £7,000, so why would they put that tech in a £2,000 device? Well, this is a very competitive marketplace. The value proposition keeps shifting, as exemplified by products such as the Eversolo DMP-A8. It's well built, has an ultra-slick user interface, the feature set is off the chart, and it sounds pretty good too. Auralic's new products are an attempt to shift the scales back in their favour. It's the new Vega S1 streaming DAC that I'm reviewing today, and the purer power external power supply. So, just how good are these new Auralic products? The new Auralic Vega S1 streaming DAC retails for £1,999. The aluminium platework forming the chassis is thinner than the G2.2 series, a necessary cost-cutting measure, I expect. But the crisp edges and matte black finish impart a monolithic aesthetic, whilst the glass extending end-to-end over the front panel and the brand name engraved into the top panel convey a sense of contemporary, understated elegance. There are buttons for power, play, pause, menu access, skip forward and backwards, discreetly located on top. However, their location may be an issue for those placing the unit in a rack where there's limited headroom. On the rear are balanced XLR and single-ended RCA analog connections, 2 optical Toslink digital inputs, a coaxial and a USB digital input. There's a USB port to connect external hard drives. The Vega S1 has no option for an internally stored solid-state drive like the Auralic Altair G2.2. Wi-Fi connectivity has also been omitted to achieve a target price under £2,000, but I do feel that just having an RJ45 port for Ethernet restricts the appeal of this device. The HDMI port is merely a connection for the optional purer power linear power supply. It comes in a chassis which is identical to the Vega S1. Together they make what would be a full rack width unit and sit unassumingly and elegantly together, a lesson in subtlety and stylish branding that many other manufacturers could learn from. But if you want Wi-Fi connectivity and HDMI eARC, both are present on the £1,890 Eversolo DMP-A8, which many will consider to be the closest competitor to the new Auralic Vega S1. The reality is that I think they'll appeal to two very different kinds of users. You buy the Eversolo DMP-A8 because you like the features, the user interface, and because it offers decent sound quality. The Vega S1 is a much more purist piece, which you'll only really appreciate when you consider what's happening inside the device. So let's take a look. Essentially, the Auralic Vega S1 is a stripped-out version of the £6,899 Vega G2.2. You haven't got the same external feature set or fancy chassis with heavy-duty nickel-coated copper base plate and multi-spring feet suspension system. What the Vega S1 shares with the Vega G2.2 is the same Tesla G3 streaming platform, Fusion DAC and analog stage. Those are the essential internal parts, bar the power supply, for which the S1 has an upgrade anyway. The new Tesla G3 platform is 8 times faster than the older G2, with an ARM Cortex-A9 quad-core processor using 64-bit architecture. Clock precision has also improved from 72 femtoseconds to 60 femtoseconds. That helps reduce a nasty form of digital distortion known as jitter, but Auralic claim that their new Tesla G3 streaming platform is pretty much immune to jitter due to the deployment of 2 new key technologies. An entire track is recorded into a buffer and then played from that file. Auralic termed the process DDR for direct data recording. It has no dependency on incoming timing information or need for reclocking, as with many other DACs. It's a much bigger buffer than a FIFO buffer, for example what you get with Denafrips DACS. The problem is that there's a high amount of latency with signals fed through digital inputs. That's not a problem with music sources, but it is a problem with video sources. The latency causes a lip sync issue, which means that you can't simply connect a TV to the optical input and a Blu-ray player to the coaxial input. It makes the Vega S1 pretty much useless in a 2-channel AV setup. There are some sonic benefits to the way that this device buffers data, but the latency issue could be resolved by including HDMI eARC on this unit. HDMI ARC uses a different digital interface. It's included on the Eversolo DMP-A8, which is likely to be cross-shot with the Auralic Vega S1. Including HDMI ARC or eARC on the S1 would mean that the audio signal would not need to go through the same buffering circuitry as the other digital inputs. Inexpensive implementations of HDMI eARC would not be appropriate for a purist device like the Vega S1. The video switching of HDMI eARC in particular is a significant source of noise. To do it properly, well, that costs money. It's included on the new Altair G2.2, which has also been launched alongside the S-Series products. The Altair G2.2 shares the Vega G2.2's more substantial chassis, but will still set you back £5,299. The Tesla G3 platform also has another key technology, DMA. It stands for Direct Memory Access. CPUs have poor quality clocks, which introduce a significant source of internal latency and jitter. Auralic don't rely upon the standard USB or I2S output from the CPU, but use a proprietary data portal between the CPU and other modules within the unit. The previous Tesla G2 platform required a bridge between the CPU and other modules, but the new Tesla G3 platform has a processor with a configurable protocol that negates the need for a bridge. Auralic claimed that DMA and DDR have reduced internal latency and jitter by 90% compared to the G2. They've also internally introduced galvanic isolation between the processor and other modules to reduce electrical noise. The Vega S1 also has the Fusion DAC lifted from the Vega G2.2. It disables most of the digital functions from the ESS DAC chip, such as phase lock loop, digital filtering and oversampling. The resistor switching output stage of the ESS chip is fed directly to Auralic's proprietary filtering and oversampling within the Tesla G3 platform. The analog section of the Vega S1 has also been extracted from the Vega G2.2 with Auralic's Orfeo Class A output modules capable of producing a balanced output and having the ability to drive low impedance loads. The resistor ladder analog volume control should offer better dynamic range at low volumes than a potentiometer. It even uses coil latch relays that are capable of maintaining their status without a control signal present. This reduces EMI generated by traditional relays. Finally, let's take a look at the optional Pura Power external power supply. It features 2 dedicated transformers with total galvanic isolation between the Tesla G3 processing circuit and the audio circuits. My experience has shown that good quality external power supplies have been a cost-effective way to upgrade the performance of streamers and DACs, so I was curious to find out how this unit would perform in standard form and with the power supply upgrade. Before I get to sound quality, there are some things about the user interface that I want to discuss. Auralic's been going for 10 years, and during that time their app has only been supported on iOS devices, and nothing's likely to change anytime soon, so Android users are going to be disappointed. The Lightning DS app is functional, stable and pretty comprehensive, but it isn't going to worry the likes of Bluesound, Hi-Fi Rose or Eversolo for the slickness of the graphical interface. I accept that Auralic is a much smaller company than Eversolo and Hi-Fi Rose that are backed up by corporate giants that can throw a huge amount of resource at their UI, but some users are going to find the lack of touchscreen a little bit cumbersome. The buttons get the job done, but there's a lot more faff involved than with the Eversolo DMP-A8. I won't go through the menus here, but there's plenty of settings to explore under the System menu. The Streamer menu confirms that the usual culprits are supported as far as streaming services are concerned. The Vega S1 has also been certified by Roon to function as an endpoint from launch. New software has also been released that will work on all products in the current Auralic range. Version 10.0 supports DAC Live room correction. Attach a calibrated mic like the UMIC 1 to your PC and it will communicate with your Auralic device. A word on parametric EQ. It should be used to resolve room problems once you've already explored speaker positioning, listening position and acoustic treatment. It is not a panacea for everything, as some people imply, and the reason is that parametric EQ introduces digital filters into the signal path. These create digital artifacts and phase linearity problems. What you're essentially doing is correcting in the frequency domain but introducing errors in the timing domain. That's just how FIR and IR filters work. And these digital artifacts and phase shifts are particularly audible in the mid and high frequencies in well-timed resolving systems. For the sake of brevity, let's face it, this video is going to be long enough. Let me talk about the sound quality of the Auralic Vega S1 in terms of comparisons. My reference DAC below £2,000 is the Gustard R26. It has excellent detail, sounds natural, and has a deep soundstage. My only criticism is that I'd like a wider soundstage and a bit more bass punch. People are bound to ask me how it compares to the Auralic Altair G1.1 that I reviewed last year. That's no longer here, but I have the R26 as a common point of reference. I noted that the Altair G1.1 sounded remarkably similar to the Gustard R26 after days of going back and forth between the two DACs. The only differences that I was able to tease out weren't in terms of resolution or tone, but spatial presentation. The Altair G1.1 had a slightly wider soundstage, whereas the R26 was a little bit deeper. So, if the Vega S1 is a level above the Gustard R26 in terms of resolution, the same would apply to the Altair G1.1 too. As for the Eversolo DMP-A8, it's a tiny bit cleaner but also leaner in its presentation than the R26. It certainly isn't up to the levels of musical insight of the Vega S1. The DMP-A8 is a great device when you take into account the feature set, the user interface and the general sound quality. The issue is that when you're listening to acoustic instruments, you're often too aware that you're listening to a recording. The other DACs mentioned here give a better account of the real thing. So what about my Denafrips Venus 2 hooked up to the older Auralic Aries G1 streaming transport? Bear in mind that that combination is over £5,500, so we're not talking about apples for apples. Also worth noting is that the firmware update to the Venus 2 last year made a big improvement to the sound, more so than switching my Venus 2 for the Terminator 12th anniversary. The G1 Venus 2 combination shows a clear pair of heels to the Vega S1. The soundstage is considerably larger in all directions. The bass hits harder, there's more acoustic mass to vocals and lead instruments, and there's better space between the performers. But attaching the purer power supply to the Vega S1 opens things up considerably. It's easier to focus on individual performers in the mix. There's better micro detail retrieval, bass definition, as well as refinement in the mid-range and highs. The attack of notes is crisp but not overly sharp. Actually, in this regard it's slightly better than my G1 Venus 2 Duo that's a little bit softer, but even though it runs them closer than it has any right to, for half the price. Ultimately, it's my reference digital front end that has a lot more scale and authority. Another thing worth mentioning is that the analog volume control works a treat in the sense that it provides attenuation without any loss in fidelity. The only bugbear is that the relays click from switching resistors in the ladder, which may not be everybody's cup of tea. Before I wrap things up, I should also let you know that the Vega S1 can run in pure DAC mode. It shuts down hardware and software associated with network functions when not in use, and that helps to keep the noise floor as low as possible when using the S1 purely as a DAC. What is indisputable is that Auralic have stripped away non-essential features from their $7,000 Vega G2.2 and placed what's left in cheaper clothing. The fact that I think that the Vega S1 looks even better than its slightly clunkier big brothers is a matter of personal taste. The addition of the purer power external linear power supply unlocks the full potential of this device. If you don't need additional functions, this combination will give you the performance of the G2.2 series for a fraction of the price. There are people who want a touchscreen, HDMI, eARC and Wi-Fi connectivity, and that's fair enough. They should look for an equivalent price product from Eversolo or Hi-Fi Rose. But take the streamer aside for a second. If you're in the market for a DAC for £2,000, this is the best that I've heard for the money. Then throw in the fact that you're getting Auralic's top-of-the-range streaming module thrown in there as well, and I'm sure you know where this is heading. The Auralic Vega S1, with or without the purer power linear power supply, gets an outstanding from this channel. There are new and interesting digital products coming out all the time, so my question for today is simply, what digital products would you like to see me review in the near future? Please let me know in the comment section. All that remains for me to say is, if you like what I'm doing with this channel, you want to see it grow, and assuming you haven't done so already, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Check me out on Patreon. There's a couple of consultancy tiers you can access there if you think I can help you on your audiophile journey. Also check out the ABA Club on Patreon, which has some great ways to interact with me and fellow Patreons. But for today, for now, British Audiophile, signing off.